Hello, friends and neighbors. This is Jeff coming to you with Spiritual Defense Radio. We hope that you are doing fabulous. We're actually trying something new today. Our friend Arnold has been blessed with various opportunities to work in his chosen field, as well as competing in jiu-jitsu and other places. So he's been a little bit more out of pocket than he used to be. So when we are still looking to record with him as often as we possibly can, but Preacher Man decided that the time has come to see if he can figure out how to do some of this stuff on his own, just so that we can keep up with a regular schedule of producing this Spiritual Defense podcast. So again, we hope you're doing well, and we hope to be joined by Arnold in the foreseeable future. But here we go, we continue on. If I were to ask you the question, what are you, or who do you think you are, what would you say? When you talk to somebody, or when you introduce yourself to somebody for the first time, how is it that you try to size somebody else up? How is it do you feel like you're being sized up? What I mean by that is this. If you're in a social situation and you come and you meet somebody for the first time, how quickly do you go to the questions of what do you do, whether or not you're married, whether or not you served in the military, what did you do in high school or college, and all these sorts of identifying questions. Why do we do that? We do that because we feel like these outlying things we do, our profession, what we did, if we're married, how many kids we have, what kind of car we drive, where do we live, where were we born, all these types of things, we believe that these make up what we are, and that they're the only things which make up what we are. You know, I was doing a lesson a few months ago, and doing my research for the lesson, I stumbled upon this interesting bit of trivia. The trivia said that the average person believes that they do nothing adventurous after the age of 30. Or in other words, after the age of 30, they don't do anything that's worthy of remembrance. And I remember thinking to myself, because I'm 42, and I remember thinking, that's really sad. It's like, why? How? But then I had to remember my life between like the ages of 18 and 30. And I guess it does make a certain amount of sense why people would feel that way. Again, when you're 18, you're graduating from high school, you're starting the next phase of life. You're either going to college, you're going to trade school, you're going to the military, you're starting life on your own. Good chance you're moving out of your parents' house for the very first time. You're establishing yourself in more of an adult type role. You're getting your first careers, not just the part-time jobs that you might have had in high school. Chances are you're getting married. Chances are you're having your first children. Chances are you're doing all the relocating that you possibly can in order to get to the place where it is that you can pursue your career. And so again, that 12 years between graduation of high school and the age of 30, there is tons of adventure and just life getting started. But again, the chance is that by the time you hit 30, life is settling down a bit. You have a established career. You've been married possibly for a few years. You have at least one child, if not all your children, by the time that you're 30. And so now you're just kind of settling down into the parental role. And just, life just kind of slows down. But does it have to be that way? Well, the answer to that is no. Life can be full of adventure if we allow it. Arnold and I have talked about this a few times. The adventure of the Christian life, the adventure of ministry, it's if we live the Christian life, if we live the ministry the way that it's supposed to be lived, then every day can be an adventure, because there's no telling on what given day God may send us somewhere else, or He might send us to do something that we've never done before. Life changes every day. if we take advantage of the situations with which we're given. But we've talked about that. I don't want to rehash all of that, but you can see that in our archives at the North Mission Church of Christ YouTube page. But what I wanted to talk about was kind of the flip side. Why is it that the devil would want us to be still by the time we hit 30? Why is it that the devil would want us to put life into cruise control, about the age of, 27 to 30, and then we live, the next 30 years of life, we turn around when we're 60 and we think to ourselves, where did the time go? What have I done? It's because time is passing, regardless if we enjoy it or not. While I was researching another lesson, I came across this quote by Henry Rollins, who's a musician, comedian, does various things. And I really like what he said. He said that you do not have spare time, you do not have dead time, and you do not have wasted time. All you have is lifetime. Go. And that's the point. Regardless if we're enjoying life or not, time is passing. Regardless if we're having adventure in life or not, time is passing. Regardless if we feel like we've used today to the very best of our ability, we do not get this day back. Now this is in my mind because this is what motivated me to try to do this podcast by myself if I needed to, because I sit around and I think to myself, there's all these things that I would like to do, but for some reason I feel like I don't have the knowledge base to do it on my own, so I wait in order for people to come into my life so that they can help me do X. Now again, there is a place for that because we need to learn new skills and what have you. But the problem is that we cannot sit around all of our lives waiting. We cannot just sit around and just hope that somebody will one day come into my life to show me how to do X. There's going to have to be some personal learning. There's going to have to be some personal development in order to be able to do the things that God is leading us to do. Because I don't get today back. If I waste today, if I do absolutely nothing today, I do not get to be like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day and wake up tomorrow morning and it is April 13th, 2022 all over again, which is the day I'm recording this. It doesn't work like that. Tomorrow's a new day. What we would call today is going to be gone. What did I do with it? And so what the devil wants to do is that the devil wants to lull us to sleep with life. He can't do that at the beginning because we have to get life started. But once life is started, then we can go to sleep. Then we can go into routine. We can go into the day in, day out, living your life, just taking care of your stuff. And then we wake up twice, 30, 40 years has passed. And we have no idea where it went. And we cannot get it back. We do not get a do-over. It's sneaky. It's sneaky what the devil tries to do to us. Not just the sin and temptation, but just getting us to forget about some of the fundamental aspects of life, such as time. We know that there's no clock in heaven. Peter told the people he wrote to that for the Lord a day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years is like a day. It's not a mathematical formula, but it's just getting us to try to see things from God's point of view. There is no time. There is no concept of time where God is. But we have it here because we're finite creatures. One day we will die unless Christ comes back. But if Satan views each follower of God, each Christian, as someone who is potentially dangerous because of what we might be willing to do for the Lord, how can he stop us? by getting us not to think about the things that we should be doing for the Lord. There's a great book out there that I absolutely adore, and it's one of those that I believe every Christian should read once. And it's not the Bible. The Bible, Charles Spurgeon once said, visit many great books, but live in the Bible. And I believe that. Outside the Bible, there are some books that I do believe that would give us an interesting perspective on life. And again, it's not a holy book. It's not inspired by the Holy Spirit or anything. It was just written by a talented person. And it's helped me a lot in my personal development. Okay, drug this out far enough. The book I'm talking about is C.S. Lewis's The Screwtape Letters. And if you're not familiar with this book, and again, if you are familiar with me, you've heard me talk about this book because I talk about this book a lot. I even taught a class on it, which if you ever talk to people who went to that class, they're like, oh my goodness, we're doing Screwtape again. But I love the book because what I appreciate about it is that it's like the Devil's Playbook. If you've never read it, if you can imagine this, you have this guy Screwtape, and he's writing letters to his nephew, Wormwood. Oh, and by the way, they're both demons. And they're writing because Wormwood is asking his uncle Screwtape how he can better tempt mankind. One of the earliest chapters, and it's been a little bit since I've read it, but I do believe it's chapter 1. Screwtape talks about how he was working on this guy. They call him Patience, ironically enough. He's working on his patient, and his patient, who's an atheist, is sitting in a museum. And he's looking around at all the historical artifacts that one finds in the museum. And Screwtape says that the patient starts having this thought of, is this all we have to leave behind after we're gone? In other words, he's starting to think about his own death and what he's leaving behind and what he might be leading towards. In other words, for a demon, this is a dangerous place because, the devil doesn't want us thinking about the hereafter, life after death, standing before God or anything like that. He doesn't want us thinking about these things because if we do, we might change. And so the patient's talking to himself and he says, this is something that I need to spend more time thinking. And all of a sudden Screwtape, the demon, is right in his ear saying, yes, but this is too important to think about over an empty stomach. How about lunch? And the patient agrees. I should have some lunch. So he starts walking out of the museum, and as he's walking out of the museum, he talks about how he sees a newspaper with today's headlines. He looks out and he sees a bus going down the street. He sees the traffic. He sees the people. He sees the light. He sees his life. And that was the point that Screwtape was trying to make. When this guy was on the edge of a spiritual awakening, to be able to see and hear that there is something missing in his life, Screwtape the demon, on behalf of the devil, interrupts him and distracts him with real life. The guy was able to go back to his real life and not be able to think about these things anymore. This is what the devil tries to do with us in time. He doesn't want us thinking about God. He doesn't want us thinking about the hereafter, the judgment, or anything like that. He wants us thinking about so-called real life. Because in our so-called real life, we have our responsibilities. We have work. We have children to raise. We have bills to pay. We have taxes to pay. We have cars to fix. We got all this stuff that we feel like that we have to do. And while we are doing that, we are not taking care of the things of God. And maybe we won't even think about it until we realize our life is coming to an end. It's a scary thing, but it's something that we do have to think about. What is life? James will tell us that our life is a mist. That's an interesting part of James. That's James 4. And James tells his readers, he's talking to some people, and he says, you who are making your plans, you who have these grand schemes, you who feel like you have all the time in the world. He says, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend the year there and trade and make profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance, and all such boasting is evil. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. We started off this podcast this way. What are your plans? What are you thinking to do? Maybe you already have plans for this coming summer. Do you know what you're going to do this summer? Do you know what kind of trips you're going to make? Do you know what kind of business trips you're going to make? Do you have any lectureships or seminars to go to? What kind of plans are you making for the summer this year? Maybe you've already made Christmas plans. Maybe you're already making plans for 2023. What kind of plans are we making? Do you think you're going to be there when the plans come to fruition? You probably expect yourself to be there, but will you be there? You don't know. Just like I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Life changes on a dime, and everything can change in 24 hours. But if the devil can get me thinking about my plans, I'm not focused on the here and now. Also, if the devil can get me thinking about real life, I'm not focusing on the things that I can do for God. So what do we do? How do we get past this? What strategy can we cling to in order to do the will of the Lord in this world filled with noise and distraction? Well, we really have to hone in and focus. We have to hone in and focus on the day and truly view life one day at a time. Jesus would talk about that. He would talk about that in the context of worry and anxiety, talking about how we don't need to worry about what's coming next because today has enough trouble of its own. We live one day at a time. That's first and foremost. Take advantage of the day. Today. What are you going to do today? What am I going to do today for the Lord? We'll have all this stuff to do we? Is it as important? How much, if it's stuff we need to do, then do it. But the thing about it is, I heard a wise man say once, we make time for anything we wish to do. There's always time for that. There's always time for the things we want to do. Goodness sakes, we live in a period of time right now when people actually plan parts of their lives for nothing but binge watching TV. They set time aside for that. We have time. Time is not the issue. The issue is drive. Going back to Satan, what is the alluring aspect of not doing anything adventurous after the age of 30? Well, it's because when we get to that after the age of 30 and settling down in routine, we realize we love routine. We realize we're comfortable with our life the way it is. And that's the danger. If we're going to be God's people, we need to be willing to live dangerously and to avoid routine. Avoid the status quo. Don't look forward to coming home from work and sitting in the lounge chair and binge watching Netflix for the next 5 hours. Don't look forward to being able to just merely be the chauffeur for your kids as you take them to their various games and practices and whatnot. Live life not by routine. Shake it up a bit. Do things differently. Try something new. Do something new. Learn a new skill. Tomorrow is the word that's used a lot by addicts. Tomorrow I'll get my life straight. But it's also used a lot in Christian circles. Tomorrow I'll get my life together for the Lord. Tomorrow I will do this. Tomorrow I'll do that. May we be the people who take tomorrow out of our vocabulary whenever possible. If you want to start that Bible study, start it today. If you want to talk about Christ to your friend at work, do it today. You want to write that book? Start today. But strive to do it today, because the devil knows that if he can get us to think about doing it tomorrow, chances are we won't do it because we'll always kick it down till tomorrow. And sooner or later, we will run out of tomorrows. Don't listen to the devil. Don't live a life of averageness. Live a life of adventure. Strive to stretch. Strive to grow. Strive to do the different and the unexpected. Because to do the average and the routine can lead us, if we're not careful, to spiritual boredom and spiritual death. Thank you for joining me today. And we pray that God may bless your life, and we pray that you may walk in the Lord, and that if you don't know the Lord, that you seek Him out. You can find me at Jeff LaPlace on Facebook. You can find the Spiritual Defense page on Facebook called Spiritual Defense. These new recordings are placed on SoundCloud, and also the old recordings are placed onto the North Mission Church of Christ YouTube page. Grace and peace to you all.